The cafe was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes after a long, busy day. The rain outside tapped gently against the windows, washing the city lights into soft, blurred colors. Laura Benson wiped down the counter, her hands moving automatically after years of closing shifts. She'd managed this little cafe in Seattle for almost a decade, and though her back ached and her feet were sore, she found comfort in the routine. The smell of coffee, the soft music, the hum of the espresso machine, all of it felt like a part of her life she could count on. Her son, Ethan, was still working near the window, stacking chairs and wiping tables. He had been helping her for months, ever since he finished college. At first, he said it was temporary a way to earn a little money before starting his new life in New York. But now, as Lavra watched him move quietly around the cafe, she couldn't help wishing time would slow down. It was late, almost midnight, and the other staff had already gone home. Just the two of them remained, the mother and son who had built quiet memories in this place. The sound of Ethan's footsteps echoed softly on the wooden floor. He was taller now, his shoulders broader, his face more mature, but when Lavra looked at him, she still saw the boy who used to draw doodles on napkins while waiting for her to finish work. "You can go home, Ethan," she said gently, drying a mug with a towel. "You've done enough for today." He looked up from the tables, his brown hair falling slightly over his forehead. "You always say that," he replied with a grin. "And every time I do, I find you're still here half an hour later." Lavra laughed softly. Old habits die hard. He walked toward the counter, pulling off his apron. "Mum, you work too much. You should let someone else close the cafe for once." She shrugged. "It's not about work. It's about peace. I like ending the day knowing everything's in its place." Ethan smiled at that, understanding her in a way few others did. They didn't need many words between them. Silence was often enough. The cafe had always been their safe space, a quiet corner of the world that felt like home. But tonight, something felt different. The air was heavier, filled with the quiet ache of change. Ethan's trip to New York was only 2 weeks away. He had dreamed about it for years, his first big step toward becoming a designer. Lavra had supported him from the start, helping him save money, encouraging him when he doubted himself. But now that the moment was finally here, her heart felt uneasy. She was proud, yes, but she also felt something deeper, something that came with every goodbye. "Do you remember when you were little?" she asked softly, her eyes drifting toward the window. "You used to wait for me after school here. You'd sit on that stool, drawing superheroes while I worked." He chuckled. "Yeah, and you'd always sneak me a cookie when your boss wasn't looking." She smiled at the memory. "You grew up here, Ethan. This place has seen you through every phase of your life. And you," he said quietly, leaning on the counter, "you've given this place everything you have." Lavra looked down, trying to hide the emotion in her eyes. "Maybe. But it gave me something too. It gave me purpose. It gave me time with you." He didn't respond right away, but she saw the understanding in his expression. Outside, a car passed by, its headlights sliding across the rain-streaked glass. The world felt distant, like they were the only two people awake in the city. "You know," Ethan said after a pause, "sometimes I wonder what it'll be like when I'm gone. You'll still be here, closing up just like this. I guess I'll miss it." Her heart twisted at his words. "Don't think about it like that," she said, forcing a smile. "Life doesn't stop, Ethan. It just changes shape." He looked at her, eyes soft but filled with emotion. "Still, it's going to feel strange. Not coming here every night. Not hearing the sound of that machine. Not seeing you behind the counter." She didn't trust herself to answer. Instead, she turned back to the espresso machine, pretending to clean it even though it was spotless. Her reflection stared back from the metal surface, tired eyes, faint smile, a mother trying to hold on to something slipping away. The clock on the wall ticked quietly. The world outside kept moving, but inside, it felt like time had stopped. Ethan walked around the counter and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You've done enough, Mom. Let's call it a night." For a moment, Lara wanted to protest, to tell him she needed to finish a few more things. But instead she just nodded. "All right." They stood there for a moment, neither moving, just listening to the soft rhythm of the rain. It was a simple moment, no big words, no dramatic gestures, but it carried more meaning than either of them could say. As Lara turned off the cafe lights, she caught one last glimpse of her son standing by the window. The glow from the street lamps framed him like a memory she wanted to keep forever. She knew this moment, this quiet space at the end of a long shift, would stay with her long after he was gone. Because sometimes, love isn't in grand gestures or big goodbyes, it's in the silent moments, the familiar places and the small acts of care that say, "I'll always be here." And as the cafe settled into stillness, Lara felt both the ache of ending and the quiet comfort of knowing she had done her part. It was just another night at the cafe, but for her, it was the beginning of learning how to let go. The rain outside grew stronger, tapping steadily on the windows as the clock crept closer to midnight. The cafe lights gave the room a soft golden glow, wrapping everything in quiet warmth. Ethan had finished cleaning the tables, and now he stood near the counter, drying his hands with a towel. Lara was counting the day's earnings, her fingers moving through the bills, her mind elsewhere. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was peaceful, the kind that came from years of understanding each other without needing to speak. Ethan broke the stillness first. "How about one last coffee before we go?" he asked, his voice light but thoughtful. Lara looked up, a tired smile touching her lips. "You're still trying to bribe me to stay longer?" He grinned. "Maybe. Or maybe I just want an excuse to make you a cup for once." She hesitated but nodded. "All right. Make it a cappuccino." He moved behind the counter with a sense of ease. The sound of the coffee grinder filled the air, followed by the hiss of the milk steamer. The familiar rhythm of those sounds had been part of Laura's life for so long that it almost felt like a song she knew by heart. As she watched her son prepare the drink, she couldn't help but think how much he'd changed. He wasn't the boy who used to sneak sips of her coffee and make a face at the bitterness. He was a man now, standing in the same space she had spent her life building, about to step out into a world far bigger than this small cafe. Ethan placed the cup in front of her with a quiet smile. "There you go. One perfect cappuccino." She lifted it, inhaling the warm, rich aroma before taking a sip. "You've gotten good at this," she said. He leaned on the counter, his eyes resting on her face. "You taught me everything I know." The way he said it made her chest tighten a little. There was pride in his voice, but also something else, a sadness, a feeling of goodbye hiding beneath simple words. The rain outside was steady now, drumming against the glass. The streets were empty, and the soft hum of the cafe machines felt almost comforting. Ethan looked around and said, "It's strange. This place feels so alive during the day, but at night, it's like it belongs only to us." Lara nodded, her eyes following the reflections on the window. "That's why I love closing shifts. When everyone's gone, I can finally hear my own thoughts." "What are you thinking about tonight?" he asked softly. She smiled faintly. "About you. About how fast time goes. One minute you're spilling cocoa all over the counter, and the next you're talking about moving across the country." He gave a small laugh, but his expression turned serious. "I keep thinking about it too. I thought leaving would be exciting. but lately it feels heavy. Change always does, she said quietly. Ethan nodded but didn't reply. He looked at the rain again, the light catching in his eyes. I used to think I'd never leave this place. I thought life happened right here in this cafe, in this city. But now that I'm going, I keep wondering what will happen to everything I'm leaving behind. Laura placed her cup down. It'll stay here. The cafe isn't going anywhere, and neither am I. You'll come back when you can. And when you do, everything will feel the same. He looked at her, studying her face like he wanted to remember every detail, the curve of her tired smile, the way her eyes softened when she spoke. I don't think I'll ever find a place like this again, he said. You're not supposed to, she answered gently. You're supposed to find new places, new people, new dreams. That's what growing up means. Ethan was silent for a moment, then asked, Was it like that for you too? When you left your parents to start your own life? Lara thought for a second before answering. Yes, it was hard. I didn't realize how much I'd miss them until I had you. Then I understood. He smiled sadly. So this is how it feels when your kid starts chasing something bigger. She reached across the counter and touched his hand, her thumb brushing lightly against his fingers. It's exactly how it feels. It hurts, but it's beautiful too. Because it means you did something right. The air between them felt heavy with emotion, but not sorrow. It was the quiet kind of love unspoken, strong, steady. Ethan glanced at the clock. Guess we should close up. Yeah, she said softly, but neither of them moved. He took the last sip of her coffee and smiled. You still make it better than I do. She laughed quietly. Years of practice. When he walked to the window to pull down the blinds, Lara watched him closely. Every movement reminded her of the passing time. The boy he used to be. The man he had become. The distance that was coming. But she told herself not to hold him back. Love wasn't about keeping someone close. It was about letting them go and trusting they'd return when they were ready. Ethan turned back toward her. I'll miss this, he said. Not just the coffee or the rain, but this us, together. Lara swallowed the lump in her throat and smiled. Then you'll know it was real. He nodded slowly. And for a few quiet seconds they stood there, the sound of rain filling the space between them. As she turned off the espresso machine, the cafe fell silent. The smell of coffee lingered in the air, mixing with the cool scent of rain. It wasn't a sad silence. It was the kind that carried love, memory, and a little bit of longing. That night, as they locked the door and stepped outside, Lara knew this would be one of those moments she'd carry forever. The last coffee of a long shift, shared between a mother and her son, simple, quiet, and full of meaning. It wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of something new, wrapped gently inside a goodbye neither of them wanted to say. The storm outside grew louder as the night deepened. The cafe lights flickered once, casting shadows that danced briefly across the walls. Ethan stood near the window, watching raindrops trail down the glass in twisting lines. The city beyond was quiet, blurred by the rain, the streets nearly empty except for the glow of passing headlights. Lara leaned against the counter, arms folded, just watching him. There was something different in his posture that night, something thoughtful, almost heavy. I used to sit right there, Ethan said suddenly, his voice soft. He nodded toward the corner booth by the window. Every afternoon after school, I'd wait for you to finish your shift. Lara smiled faintly, her memory flashing back. You'd always order hot chocolate, extra marshmallows. You said it helped you with your homework. He chuckled. I said that just to get more marshmallows. She laughed quietly, but it faded fast, replaced by the gentle ache that had been sitting in her heart all week. Those were good days, she said. Ethan turned to her, his expression serious now. They were, This place feels like my whole childhood. I learned everything here: how to work, how to talk to people, how to listen. He paused. And mostly I learned from you. Lara looked down, trying to hide the emotion in her eyes. You give me too much credit. He shook his head. No, I don't. You taught me what strength looks like. You never gave up, even when things were hard. You made this cafe our home. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the steady hum of the fridge and the distant rumble of thunder. Lara felt tears rising but blinked them away. She didn't want him to see her cry. Not tonight. You know, Ethan continued, his voice lower now. I thought I was ready to leave. I've been planning this move for months. But the closer it gets, the more it feels like I'm walking away from everything that matters. Laura's heart ached. You're not walking away, Ethan. You're just moving forward. That's what life is supposed to be. He smiled sadly. Maybe, but I don't know if I'm ready to say goodbye to this. Lara walked over and stood beside him at the window. Together, they looked at the rain-swept street, their reflections faintly visible in the glass. You don't have to say goodbye, she said softly. You'll always carry this place with you. The smell of coffee, the sound of rain on the windows, all of it, it'll stay in your heart. He turned toward her, his voice almost breaking. And you? She met his eyes. I'll be right here, always. For a long moment, neither moved. The air between them was thick with emotion, love, pride, sadness, all woven together. It wasn't the kind of sadness that hurt sharply. It was the quiet kind that came with love that ran deep. Ethan looked down at his hands, then at her. Do you ever wish things didn't have to change? Lara smiled gently. Every day. But then I remind myself that change means you're living. It means you're growing. He nodded slowly, taking in her words. You make everything sound simple. It's not, she admitted. It just sounds that way when you've had time to make peace with it. The cafe lights glowed softly against the storm outside. The smell of coffee lingered in the air. Everything around them felt familiar, every corner, every chair, every sound. But both of them knew it wouldn't be like this much longer. Ethan took a deep breath. I don't know how you did it, raising me, running this place alone, staying strong through everything. Laura's eyes softened. When you love someone enough, you just find a way. He looked at her with quiet admiration. I hope I turn out even half as strong as you. You already have, she whispered. The thunder rolled again, and for a few seconds the cafe went dark. Only the streetlights outside gave the room a faint glow. Ethan's face was outlined in the dim light, and Lara thought about how quickly time had moved. It felt like just yesterday she was holding his small hand, teaching him to count change at the register, laughing when he spilled cocoa on the floor. And now, here he was, a man with dreams too big for this little cafe. When the lights flickered back on, Ethan turned away from the window. Mom, he said quietly. I'm scared. She blinked, surprised. Of what? He hesitated. Of leaving. Of failing. Of not being good enough once I'm out there. Lara reached out and touched his arm. Ethan, being scared means you care. It means what you're doing matters. You'll make mistakes, but that's how you'll grow. He looked at her hand on his arm, then met her eyes. You really believe that? I do, she said. Because I believe in you. The words seemed to ease something inside him. His shoulders relaxed, and a faint smile appeared on his face. You always know what to say. Lara smiled back. That's my job. The storm began to quiet outside. The rain softened, and the air inside the cafe felt still again, like a breath after a long sigh. Ethan glanced around the room once more, taking it all in: the coffee machine, the counter, the empty chairs. I'll miss this, he said. I know, she whispered. So will I. They stood there for a while longer, saying nothing, letting the moment speak for them. It wasn't a grand farewell or a dramatic goodbye, it was quiet, real and full of meaning. As the clock ticked toward midnight, Laura knew this night would stay with her forever. She had watched her son grow in this cafe, watched him become the man she always hoped he'd be. And though her heart ached at the thought of him leaving, she also felt peace. Because love, she realized, wasn't about keeping someone close. It was about giving them the strength to walk away, and knowing they'd carry a piece of you wherever they went. The clock struck midnight, and the sound echoed softly through the quiet cafe. The storm outside had passed, leaving behind a calm drizzle that shimmered under the streetlights. Laura turned off the last of the machines, her movements slow, almost hesitant. The air inside was still warm, filled with the lingering scent of coffee and rain-soaked air. Ethan stood near the counter, folding his apron neatly before setting it down. The moment felt heavier than usual, like the end of something they both weren't ready to let go of. "Well," he said with a faint smile, breaking the silence. "I guess that's it. Another shift done." Laura nodded, forcing a small smile of her own. "End of the shift," she repeated quietly, her voice almost trembling. He leaned against the counter, watching her lock the cash drawer. "You always look so serious when you close up," he said, trying to lighten the mood. She looked up at him and smiled. "Someone has to make sure everything's perfect before we leave." He laughed softly. "You and your rules. Even the coffee cups have to be lined up exactly right." "That's how I keep my world in order," she replied gently. But deep down, she knew it wasn't really about the cafe. It was about control, about holding on to what she could, now that so much was changing. Ethan was leaving soon. She could feel the days slipping through her fingers like sand, no matter how tightly she tried to hold them. He came closer, his expression softening. "You're thinking too much again," he said, reading her the way he always did. She smiled faintly. "And you're still too good at noticing." He shrugged. "You're my mom. It's kind of my job." They both laughed quietly, but the sound faded into silence again. The world outside was peaceful now. No thunder, no rush of cars, just the quiet rhythm of the rain and the soft ticking of the clock. It was the kind of silence that made people feel things they couldn't say out loud. Ethan walked to the window and looked out. "It's weird," he said. "It's just another night, but it feels like more than that." Laura joined him, standing shoulder to shoulder. "Maybe because it is," she said softly. He turned to her. "I've been thinking, when I leave for New York, it won't just be about chasing a dream. It'll be about taking everything you taught me with me. The patience, the hard work, the way you never gave up even when things were tough." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. "That's all I ever wanted, for you to build something beautiful out of your life." He nodded, emotion tightening his voice. "You've already made mine beautiful." Laura's chest ached at his words. She wanted to freeze the moment, to stay right here, in this soft golden light, with her son beside her, and the cafe around them. Everything about this place carried their memories. His first day behind the counter, his laughter echoing through the room, his sketches on napkins tucked away in drawers. Ethan turned from the window and wrapped his arms around her. It wasn't a quick hug, it was long, deep, full of everything they hadn't said. Laura closed her eyes, letting herself hold him like she used to when he was little. For a moment, the years between then and now disappeared. When he finally pulled back, his voice was low. "I'll miss this." "I know," she whispered. "So will I." He smiled sadly. "But I'll be okay." "You've made sure of that?" Laura nodded, trying to steady her voice. "You'll do great, Ethan. You always find your way." He looked around one last time. as if trying to capture every detail: the coffee machine, the flickering light near the door, the smell of roasted beans that had always filled the air. "I'll carry this place with me," he said. "Every time I walk into a cafe in New York, I'll think of you." She laughed softly. "Then make sure you find one that makes their cappuccino right." "I'll try," he said with a grin. They gathered their things quietly. Lara grabbed her coat,